was one of the bloodiest events in Jamaica's history.
The police them going take out them gun and kill them.
They're under orders to do what the they did.
Pitting security forces against residents of West Kingston in the hunt for drug lord Christopher Dudus Coke.
The instruction that we got from Tivoli was to just kill, and kill.
I do believe there were extrajudicial killings in Tivoli.
For the first time in 5 years, 2 lower-ranking security officers revealed their version of what really happened in Tivoli and why more than 70 people lost their lives. And later,
it's very hard for me to look at this picture and see how the United States does not have some complicity and even some degree of arguably direct involvement in these deaths.
Probing the role the United States played in the West Kingston incursion. All this and more on this episode of 18 Degrees North. Hello, I'm Zara Burton and welcome to 18 Degrees North. It's from right here in Kingston, Jamaica, 18 degrees north of the equator, that every week we're going to take you on a global journey with us as we focus on Caribbean stories that have global impact. And we begin with what the New Yorker magazine calls a massacre in Jamaica. 5 years after one of the bloodiest events in the country's history, a commission of inquiry is probing the actions of security forces in West Kingston when 76 people lost their lives during the hunt for drug lord Christopher Dudus Coke. For 4 decades, Tivoli Gardens operated as a state within a state. By May 2010, its leader, Christopher Dudus Coke, was set to be extradited to the United States on drugs and weapons charges.
A rise in the arrest of Tivoli Gardens strongman Christopher Dudus Coke has been signed.
The signed arrest warrant triggered a spate of violence in Kingston. Gunmen killed 2 police officers, police stations were set on fire. Supporters of Coke said they would rather die than turn him over to the United States.
We not give up with others, we love him bad, and we have a dead fame.
By the time security forces entered Tivoli to capture Coke, amidst a state of emergency.
The state of emergency will enable the security forces to exercise extraordinary powers.
Many of them would.
The helicopter is throwing grenades on the
Coke was not immediately found, but blood and bodies were everywhere. Residents blamed the security forces.
The police them going take out them gun and kill them.
And said officers acted like the killings were sanctioned.
Them not just act on them behalf, they get some order.
They're told to do what they did. They're under orders to do what they did.
In a New York Times article verified by 18 Degrees North, one woman who witnessed her 22-year-old brother's alleged murder said she was told that because of the state of emergency, police officers had permission from their superiors to kill men his age. And in a later report by Jamaica's public defender, one resident alleges a soldier told him his orders were to kill, then search. But at a recent sitting of the Commission of Inquiry, the head of the Jamaican Constabulary Force at the time said he told officers to protect civilian lives.
The considerations were citizen security, their own safety, preventing obstruction of the men and women who were conducting the operation. All members of the JCFR who participated in the operations were briefed by the Commissioner of Police on the provisions of the policy on human rights and use of force.
But if the policy says whenever the lawful use of force and firearms is unavoidable, JCF members will minimize damage and injury and respect and preserve human life, Jamaicans are asking, how come then were only 4 security officers killed and yet 76 civilians lost their lives? For the first time, we hear from 2 lower-ranking officers in the security forces. One, a policeman who claims he was part of an elite squad, given special instructions to enter West Kingston days before the incursion began on May 24th. We recorded this interview in summer 2014, but held back on airing it because it seemed too incredible. Recently, however, we were able to verify that he was part of the West Kingston operations of 2010. Given his involvement, we felt it was important to share his story. Please be reminded, we have not been able to independently verify his version of events. The interview is taped in silhouette because this officer has broken a code of silence.
2010, Tivoli Gardens. Christopher Dudus Coke was wanted by the United States, and he was holed up in the community. The residents of that community were defending him. Your force, your elite squad, what was your role?
The instruction that we got from Tivoli was to just kill, 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 and kill. The senior officer told us that they don't have any space for any prisoners. So we must go there and get rid of everything that moved down there. We even got the instruction that Dudus was nowhere there. But then we have information that guns were there. We can't find the guns, so kill anything that we catch moving down there.
Where were the directives coming from?
It was from the hierarchy of the Jamaica Defense Force and also to the JCF at that time.
How long did that operation last?
The entire operation lasted for about 42 days.
Starting when?
Starting from about the 5th of May, or the 10th of May. 10th of May.
Mm-hmm. Until Dudus was captured?
Yes. They developed a strategy called provocation, meaning that they would just drive around just for the Tivoli members to see members of the police, to provoke them to fire at us. Because we didn't want to fire at them at first, because the media had the police in a bad light already. So we entered into Tivoli would just give the police, give the citizens more ammo to say that we are targeting them. So what we did was develop a strategy called provocation. We get the media to see that they were doing the sandbags, creating fortress against the police force for us not to enter. So what we did was drive around, provoke them to fire at us, but they didn't fire at us until later down into the incursion, around the 20th into the 24th.
There have been rampant reports that there were more than 70 people. How many people do you think were actually killed in that incident?
I counted 150.
You counted 150, more than double the official count?
Yes.
How do you know this?
I was a part of a mop-up team. We went in, helped the soldiers, helped the BSI people to take up people to go to different locations to carry out postmortem and decompose bodies. But most of these 150, the 150 was not exactly from Tivoli itself. It was amongst Denham Town, Rima, and also Tivoli.
Coming up on 18 Degrees North, an ex-soldier who says his orders were to preserve life, not kill. But even he admits what happened on the ground was far different.
I do believe there were extrajudicial killings in Tivoli. If police did catch Dudus, they would have killed him.
Next on 18 Degrees North. The preceding segment was filmed on location at the Ligony Club in New Kingston. For reservations and information, go to our website, www.theligonyclub.com. Our next interview with an ex-soldier of the Jamaica Defense Force, or JDF, contradicts the account of that police officer. He says he never received any instructions to kill, and the idea that those orders were handed down seems far-fetched. On the morning of the incursion on May 24th, this soldier said he attended 2 briefings where he was reminded of the use of force policy designed to protect human life. Still, even he admits that human rights abuses were carried out among the rank and file of the security forces. He refused to be named or recorded, so we used an actor to voice what he told us.
We woke up on Monday at 6:30 a.m., ate breakfast, and heard that we needed to go to Tivoli. Some persons left early to go on rooftops like Seprod to serve as snipers. Others of us had a briefing at about 7:45 a.m. Commanding Officer Sewell told Charlie Company, "Don't use excessive force. The best operation is where people come back safe." After the muster briefing, we had a meeting at CTOG, the Special Ops unit considered to be the best in the JDF. The CTOG team was going in with Charlie Company to Java, where Dudus lived. Some police were there that work along with CTOG. At the CTOG meeting, we were also told that 2 mortars would be dropped. One of these explosive devices eventually blew off the leg of a JDF soldier. We boarded trucks and deployed out. You could hear explosives from the mortar. We patrolled up to Tivoli while coming under gunfire. We saw bodies that had been dead a day or 2 before. I saw 4 bodies personally. After we got into Tivoli, we began to clear the buildings and take full control of buildings in Java. We would knock on doors, kick off doors, clear houses and put everyone in one general area. After we bring everybody down, the police came in and started detaining people and putting people on trucks. I fired 20-something rounds throughout the course of the day. I came under fire and returned fire, but I don't know if I killed anyone. I never witnessed any soldier murder anyone, although I can't swear for anyone. Some soldiers may have used the opportunity to carry out abuses and thefts. I never saw any first-hand police brutalities, but heard among fellow soldiers about brutality of police. I heard soldiers from Bravo and Alpha companies say that police took up people and killed them. Among us, some soldiers said they saw the police take up the people and bring them around the corner where shots started to go off. When you look, there are bodies around there. I did see personally one police officer put a dead body in a burning building. I heard police say, "Long time I want to come here," to Tivoli, because enough of these boys come shoot up stations. One more said he can't believe soldiers came here and so many men still alive. I said, "The police really said that?" I do believe there were extrajudicial killings in Tivoli. If police did catch Dudus, they would have killed him.
When we reached out to the Jamaica Defence Force for a comment on alleged human rights abuses by the security forces, Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Cole said, "What that police officer said is very alien to our rules of engagement. That is against our doctrine. We use force in self-defense or to defend civilians in internal security operations, of which Tivoli is just one." For their part, the Jamaican Constabulary Force said, "We're not allowed to give any information because the Commission of Inquiry is going on." We also contacted Indicom, the law enforcement agency investigating the actions of security forces during the incursion. Terrence Williams said, "There's no evidence on any such instructions. Indeed, the claim is the opposite. All the JCF statements say they were briefed on the use of force policy and to act in accordance of that policy." We also contacted the public defender. She told us, "If they're police officers and soldiers with information, I would have thought they would want to come to the public defender and give a statement. I would encourage them to come forward." A chance vacation to Jamaica in 2010 led to an award-winning exposé on U.S. involvement in the incursion that left more than 70 people dead.
It's very hard for me to look at this picture and see how the United States does not have some complicity and even some degree of arguably direct involvement in these deaths.
Up next, we ask investigative journalist Matthias Schwartz about the role the United States played. Jamaican police and soldiers have been accused by the country's public defender of murdering at least 44 of the 76 people that died during the West Kingston incursion in 2010. But to what extent did the U.S. play a role? We speak now with investigative journalist Matthias Schwartz, who wrote an award-winning piece on the incursion for the New Yorker magazine. He joins us via Skype from Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to the program, Matt.
Hi, Zara. I'm glad to be here.
You're a New Yorker journalist. Why did you even think about doing this story on Tivoli?
I just visited Jamaica for fun in 2010, and then I just met people there on the street who told me what happened during the extradition. And what they told me was so different from what had been printed in the news that I figured if a tenth of what they were saying was true, then I really needed to look into it and dig further.
I was personally surprised by the kind of interest the United States took in Jamaica.
It's clear that the U.S. and Jamaica have a very strong relationship, and that the U.S. was deeply involved in asking the government of Jamaica to allow the extradition to proceed.
The former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Bruce Golding, testified earlier this year in 2015 that he made a request for U.S. surveillance help on May 25th, and he only learned about a U.S. surveillance plane on May 24th from your article. Let's listen to a clip of what he had to say.
From his reporting, a plane was in place on Monday the 24th. My request through the U.S. Charge of Affairs was made on the afternoon of Tuesday the 25th.
What does it say to you that there was a request by him on the 25th, and yet previous to his request there was already a plane in the air on the 24th?
You would imagine that someone from the Jamaican government or the Jamaican military would be aware, but who exactly was informed, how that authorization proceeded, that's just one of the many unanswered questions here.
Isaiah Parnell seemed to have said that if the request was granted, they would follow up instead of with the government, but more so with the JDF. What do you make of the relationship between the Jamaican Defense Force, which is the soldiers of Jamaica, and the United States?
I know from documents I have that the U.S. military regularly trains members of the JDF. One thing we do know is that there was a facility on the ground in Jamaica while the incursion was happening, carrying information from the Department of Homeland Security plane to this center, and then passing it on to the ground while this operation was taking place, during the time which more than 70 people were killed. So it's very hard for me to look at this picture and see how the United States does not have some complicity and even some degree of arguably direct involvement in these deaths.
One of the police officers we spoke with mentioned that he believed he had interacted with U.S. personnel on the ground during the events of West Kingston. Do you know if there were any foreign agents or agents of the United States government on the ground at the time during the Tivoli incursion?
There were definitely people who were there beforehand to assess the security situation. There were also specially deployed U.S. people who were there to help protect the embassy during the situation as it escalated. Were there any U.S. agents on the ground in Tivoli Gardens on May 24th and May 25th? Again, I don't know.
On May 21, Lloyd Moss from the U.S. government wrote in an email, "A major assault appears unlikely before Tuesday." Now, Tuesday would have been May 25th. The incursion was May 24th. But writing on May 21, he says, "A major assault appears unlikely before Tuesday. However, there is always the risk that members of the JCF and JDF might come under fire while probing the barricades, which might lead to large-scale action." Matt, to me, this says the United States government knew there was going to be a major assault.
It's clear that on May 21, a major assault on Tivoli Gardens was on the horizon of U.S. Embassy security staff as a significant possibility for how this might unfold.
If the United States was in fact complicit, your words, I ask, what can the residents of West Kingston do in an instance like this? Should they be bringing a case against the United States government for their losses of life?
You would need to talk to, I think, a human rights lawyer to know the answer to that.
On the point of the U.S.'s complicity, sections of documents that you asked for have been redacted. What role should be played by whether it's local journalists, the Jamaican government, civil society in Jamaica, or even the residents of West Kingston when it comes to trying to get a fuller picture of what exactly happened on the ground between the United States government working alongside the Jamaican government.
The Commission of Inquiry has been charged with getting to the bottom of this. They need to ask Parliament and ask the government of Jamaica and ask the Prime Minister to formally request that the United States turn over all of the documents and all of the intelligence and all of the other material that they have regarding this massacre and the Coke extradition. If they fail to do that, it's hard for me to see how they can dispense with their obligations in full.
Mattathias Schwartz, as always, thank you so much for shedding some insight into what really happens between the United States and Jamaica.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
That's Mattathias Schwartz. He's an investigative journalist that writes for the New Yorker magazine, joining us via Skype from Brooklyn, New York. So this is where we bring 18 Degrees North to a close for this week. Join us online, look us up on Twitter or on Facebook. We're there to keep all of us connected to the Caribbean. From all of us here at 18 Degrees North, I'm Zara Burton. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
18 Degrees North is a production of Global Reporters for the Caribbean.